Every day they laughed at him, called him slow, called him stupid. What they didn't know was that the dumb construction worker had once been the smartest tactician in Green Beret history. When terrorists rappelled down the sides of the 47-story building he was working on, their mockery was about to save 2,000 lives. Marcus, builder Thompson, wasn't just moving steel beams today. He was moving pieces on a chessboard only he could see. Welcome to the last salute, where we expose the warriors hiding in plain sight. Before I show you how a slow construction worker became a one-man army using nothing but cranes and physics, smash that subscribe button if you believe the underestimated can become unstoppable. This story will change how you see the people around you. What city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far this reaches. Chicago's Willis Tower construction site, floor 43. While the city sprawled below, Marcus Thompson moved through the steel skeleton like he'd been born to it. But to his co-workers, he was just the weird guy who barely spoke. "Hey, Marcus!" Jimmy Torino called out, laughing with the other iron workers. "You figure out which end of the hammer to use yet?" The crew erupted in laughter. To them, Marcus was the slow one, the guy who took forever to answer simple questions, who stared off into space like he was solving world hunger instead of just bolting steel. What they didn't know was that Marcus Thompson wasn't slow, he was calculating. Every beam placement, every structural stress point, every possible failure scenario ran through his mind like a computer program. At 38 years old, Marcus had been earning $32 an hour building America's skylines for 3 years. Before that, he'd been worth millions in classified operations. Master Sergeant Marcus Builder Thompson, Green Beret Special Forces. Not because he constructed buildings, but because he constructed miracles. Tactical engineering under fire, explosive demolitions, urban warfare in vertical environments. For 12 years, he'd been the military's go-to expert for impossible structural operations. His last mission in Kabul had involved rigging a 30-story building for controlled demolition while under sniper fire. He'd saved 400 Afghan civilians and earned his 3rd Bronze Star. But watching his team get picked off one by one had broken something inside him that medals couldn't fix. So he'd traded his military clearance for a hard hat, his tactical expertise for honest labor. But the knowledge was still there. Every building was a fortress, every crane was a weapon, every floor plan was a battlefield he understood better than anyone alive. If you're already seeing where this is going, hit that subscribe button now. Because when the worst happens, you want to see how genius disguised as simplicity saves the day. Marcus was welding support beams on the 43rd floor when his training kicked in. Not from the sparks or the noise, from the silence. The radio chatter from building security had stopped, not reduced, stopped completely. In 12 years of Special Forces operations, Marcus had learned that silence was never good. He set down his torch and moved to the edge of the floor, scanning the streets below through his welding mask. Chicago's morning traffic flowed normally. Pedestrians walked their usual patterns. Everything looked normal. Everything except the 3 black SUVs parked in formation around the building's base, professional spacing, escape route positioning, the kind of tactical deployment Marcus had used in Somalia. Then he saw them. Figures rappelling down the building's exterior walls. Not window washers, the equipment was wrong, not building inspectors. The timing was wrong. These were professionals with military-grade gear, moving with precision that made Marcus's blood run cold. 6 teams, 4 men each. 24 total hostiles deploying against a building full of 2,000 civilian workers who had no idea what was coming. Marcus keyed his radio to the emergency frequency. Dead air. They'd jammed communications. He was the only one who knew, the only one who could see the attack developing. And in about 90 seconds, those teams would breach the lower floors and begin working their way up. Marcus Thompson had 2 choices: run to safety, or do what Green Berets do when civilians are in danger. He chose option 3, the option only he could see. Are you ready to see how a construction site becomes a battlefield? Subscribe and keep watching. This is about to get incredible. Marcus moved through the construction site with new purpose. Not Marcus the slow worker, Marcus the tactical engineer. Every tool, every piece of equipment, every structural element suddenly became part of a defensive grid only he could visualize. The building's construction was 60% complete. Structural steel frame finished, but interior walls and most electrical systems still exposed. Perfect for someone who understood both construction and destruction. Available assets: 2 tower cranes with 200-foot operational radius, industrial welding equipment with cutting capabilities, compressed air systems throughout the building, structural steel beams staged on every floor, construction elevators with override controls, emergency lighting systems tied to backup generators. Marcus's Green Beret training kicked in completely. This wasn't a construction site anymore, it was a fortress he'd been building for 3 years without knowing it. The attackers were good, but they'd made one critical error. They thought they were assaulting a normal office building. They weren't. They were entering a vertical battlefield designed by someone who understood structural warfare better than anyone alive. Marcus grabbed his radio and switched to the crane operator frequency, the one channel they hadn't jammed because they didn't know it existed. "Big Mike, this is Marcus. Emergency protocol, now." Michael "Big Mike" O'Brien had been operating tower cranes for 20 years. He knew Marcus was weird, but the tone in his voice made him listen. "What's the situation, Marcus?" "Armed assault on the building, multiple teams. I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say." "Marcus, are you—" "Mike, 24 hostiles, automatic weapons, moving up from the ground floor. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach the civilian floors. Are you with me?" Through the crane cab window, Big Mike could see the figures Marcus was talking about. His blood went cold. "Jesus Christ, what do you need?" "Turn your crane into a weapon." Marcus moved through the building like a ghost, but not hiding, orchestrating. He knew this structure better than the attackers knew their own equipment. First priority, deny them the elevators. Marcus reached the main electrical panel and began selectively cutting power. Not a blackout, a tactical grid. Elevators stopped between floors. Emergency lighting activated. The building's systems became tools instead of conveniences. Second priority, create choke points. Marcus triggered the fire suppression system on floors 15, 25, and 35, not to stop fires, to create visibility barriers and force the attackers into predictable routes. Third priority, turn construction equipment into defensive positions. "Big Mike, swing the crane arm to the southeast corner. I'm sending you GPS coordinates." "Marcus, what are you doing?" "Trust me, and when I say drop, you drop that steel beam exactly where I tell you." The attackers had cleared the lobby and were moving up the stairwells in textbook formation. Professional, disciplined, deadly. But they were climbing into a trap designed by someone who'd spent 12 years turning urban environments into killing fields. Marcus reached the 22nd floor and began his real work. Using industrial welding equipment, he cut strategic support cables in the construction elevator shafts. Not to collapse anything, to create controlled falling hazards he could trigger remotely. The attackers were on floor 8 when Marcus activated Phase 2. The building's compressed air system, normally used for pneumatic tools, became a weapon. Marcus had rigged pressure releases throughout the stairwells. When triggered, they created explosive decompression bursts that would disorient anyone not expecting them. Floor 12. Boom. The lead assault team stumbled as compressed air exploded around them. Floor 16. Boom. The second team's formation scattered. Marcus wasn't trying to kill them. Yet, he was herding them, forcing them into the one route he wanted them to take, the route that led to floor 25, where he'd prepared his masterpiece. "Big Mike, they're taking the bait. Get ready." Through his crane cab, Big Mike watched in amazement as the slow construction worker orchestrated a defense that would have impressed military tacticians. If this is blowing your mind, subscribe to The Last Salute right now. We uncover these incredible heroes every week. The finale is going to be epic. The attackers reached floor 25 exactly where Marcus wanted them. The floor he'd been working on for 6 months. The floor where he'd staged enough structural steel to build a small bridge. They emerged from the stairwell into what looked like a normal construction zone. Steel beams, welding equipment, the usual chaos of a building site. What they didn't see was the trap. Marcus had spent 3 years learning every stress point, every structural vulnerability, every way this building could move. And now he was going to use that knowledge to protect the 1,800 civilians on the floors above. Big Mike, you see the support beam marked B7? Yeah, Marcus, the one suspended over the southeast corner? When I give the word, drop it, exactly on my mark. The attackers moved through the floor in standard urban warfare formation. Professionals who knew their business, but they didn't know Marcus's business. Marcus triggered the first phase, controlled decompression that sealed the stairwell doors. The attackers were trapped on floor 25. No way up, no way down, exactly where he wanted them. Then he activated the welding robots. Industrial welding equipment, normally used for joining steel beams, became guided projectiles. Marcus had rigged them to move on construction rails, creating a light show of sparks and flame that would disorient anyone not wearing proper protective equipment. The attackers took cover behind steel beams. Exactly what Marcus expected. Now, Mike, drop it. The 2-ton steel beam fell from the crane with surgical precision, not to hit anyone, to trigger the controlled collapse Marcus had engineered, a cascade failure that would pancake floor 25 without affecting the structural integrity of the rest of the building. The attackers had 90 seconds to escape before the floor became uninhabitable. But Marcus had cut their escape route. What followed wasn't a battle, it was physics. The controlled collapse isolated the attackers while keeping the civilians above completely safe. Emergency services could reach the survivors. The building stood firm. 24 professional terrorists neutralized by one construction worker who understood that sometimes the best offense is perfect engineering. When the Chicago PD and FBI arrived, they found Marcus Thompson sitting on a steel beam, eating his lunch like nothing had happened. Just another construction worker taking his break. The official report credited the building's innovative safety systems for containing the terrorist attack. No mention of tactical engineering, no mention of Green Beret expertise, no mention of the man who'd turned a construction site into a fortress. Marcus went back to work the next day. Same jokes from the crew, same slow reputation, same $32 an hour. But now Big Mike knew. And sometimes, late at night when the city was quiet, he'd look up at the Willis Tower and remember the day he watched a stupid construction worker save 2,000 lives with nothing but cranes and physics. Because some heroes don't need recognition. They just need the knowledge that when evil comes calling, they know exactly which beam to drop. Before you go, if this story amazed you, subscribe to The Last Salute and hit that notification bell. Next week, the story of a pizza delivery driver who stopped an assassination using nothing but his knowledge of city shortcuts and perfect timing. Drop a comment about someone who surprised you with hidden talents. Until next time, this is The Last Salute, honoring the warriors who build our world by day and protect it when needed.